46 days to go until the American people choose Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. This is the warning. This morning, there is a glow in the skies over North Carolina from the nuclear implosion of the MAGA candidate that Donald Trump called Martin Luther King on steroids many times. But before we go there, let's talk about Donald Trump appearing before Jewish voters in Washington, D.C., where incredibly, the Donald went with, if I lose the election, I'm going to have to blame it on the Jews. It's too incredible to hear it from me. Let's watch it for ourselves.
And I'll put it to you very simply and as gently as I can. I wasn't treated properly by the voters who happen to be Jewish. I don't know, do they know what the hell is happening? If I don't win this election, and the Jewish people would really have a lot to do with that if that happens, because at 40%, that means 60% of the people are voting for the enemy.
By the way, who exactly is the enemy? There are 345 million Americans. Does Donald Trump mean that anybody who votes against him is his enemy? Or is he just being specific about Kamala Harris? She's the enemy. She's the vice president of the United States. She's an American. We have listened to this man's insanity and nonsense in this country for 10 years. Donald Trump talks about enemies. Vice President Harris talks about something that is deeply, deeply true, that no matter what our differences are in tax policy, on what we think the role or size of government should be or could be, we have much more in common than we do in disagreement or difference. In fact, disagreement and tolerance for difference is part of the glue that holds this great American mosaic together and makes us preeminent in the world in arts and science and culture and technology and entrepreneurship and discovery and military power. It is the source of our strength. But Donald Trump sees disagreement as an attack because of his smallness, because of his brittle ego and his narcissism. He cannot imagine a world that he is not at the center of. He believes that he is the sun around which all things revolve. Listen to his incredible comments, speaking before an audience of Jewish Americans.
With all I have done for Israel, I received only 24% of the vote, but I understood that. That was in 2016. And, you know, it's one of those things I thought I'd do much better. I happen to have a Jewish daughter. I have a Jewish son-in-law. I have 3 Jewish grandchildren. I thought I'd do much better. But I only got 24%. Think of that. And then I became president of the United States and was the best president ever for Israel and for the Jewish people by far. Nobody was close.
He wasn't the greatest president in American history for Israel. Only a fool would believe that. He was a tag team buddy for the worst leader of the Jewish people in 2,000 years, Benjamin Netanyahu, who interfered in American politics. What Donald Trump did, along with his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who had no business being in the White House, let alone traveling the world, trying his hand at international diplomacy, what they did was destabilize the Middle East. They tried to cut a commercial deal between Israel and the richest Arab countries while freezing the Palestinians out, setting in motion, plus the incompetence of Netanyahu, for the disaster that now threatens the entire region. No matter what's going on in the world, Donald Trump's ego never takes a rest. Let's listen to him tell an audience of Jewish Americans he's the greatest American president for Israel in Israel's history.
I gave them Golan Heights. I gave them the Abraham Accords. I recognized the capital of Israel and opened the embassy in Jerusalem. And most importantly of all, I terminated the Iran nuclear deal, which was the worst deal ever made in the history of Israel, in the history of the Middle East. I was there 4 years, gave them billions and billions of dollars. I was the best friend Israel ever had.
I don't know. What about Harry Truman, who recognized the state of Israel? The simple truth is, Donald Trump doesn't know anything, really, about anything. He's ignorant of history, he's ignorant of world religion. And this speech that he gave to a group of Jewish Americans proves it. The most incredible part about it is when he lectures the Jewish American supporters of him, demands more Jewish votes than he's getting, and says if he loses the election, it will be the fault of the Jews. Truly, you can't make it up. Now, for the main event. Donald Trump loves the candidate for governor in North Carolina. And I mean, he loves him. Donald Trump has talked about Mark Robinson like he has talked about very, very few people.
He's been an unbelievable Lieutenant Governor, Mark Robinson. This is Martin Luther King on steroids, okay? Now, I told that to Mark. I said, I think you're better than Martin Luther King. I think you are Martin Luther King times 2.
You have to cherish Mark. He's a star. You have to cherish him. Amen. It's like a fine wine, because that's what you have. You have a fine wine. He's an outstanding person. He's just an outstanding guy.
Amen.
I hope
Amen.
you can back him and write checks for him.
Now, it turns out, according to the K-File, Andrew Kaczynski at CNN, what the reporting has uncovered is incredible. It has unearthed Mark Robinson's contributions, literary that is, to a porn site which he was a frequent visitor to a decade ago. Now, most of the national media cannot talk about the details of what he wrote and what he said because it's so depraved, it's so off color, they can't put it on the news. And yet, here is the family values candidate of the North Carolina Grand Old Party. And he is going to remain being supported by the Republican Party in North Carolina. The deadline has passed for him to get out of the race. He's on the ballot. It's incredible. I wore my maroon yoga sweatshirt today because I knew for this piece, I would have to breathe deeply. Because I'm going to talk about how this issue has been covered on a lot of the national news media, which, I have to be honest, brings me, like I suspect many of you, to the edge of an aneurysm in any given moment. Now, when all of this went down, suddenly the question became, is Donald Trump going to appear on a stage with Mark Robinson? Or is Donald Trump going to withdraw his endorsement from Mark Robinson? Or is the North Carolina Republican Party going to withdraw its endorsement? Or is MAGA going to walk away? There is no walking away. They are all on the same side. And this is the point the American political media misses over and over and over again. MAGA is a movement with a leader, but many other leaders are part of MAGA below Donald Trump. Marjorie Taylor Greene is a key MAGA leader. Kevin McCarthy is a key MAGA leader. Matt Gaetz is a key MAGA leader. They're all part of the same team. And the extremism of that team is beyond anything that anybody alive has ever seen in America. Mark Robinson is on the team. He can't get off the team because he's melded into it. He fits perfectly within it. He's right at home. So a man who attacks the people who are alone and stigmatized, a transgender kid, in fact, sexually fetishizes transgender people in the porn site, proving for all time that maybe the greatest wisdom of the last 100 years, besides Elie Wiesel's speech on indifference, may have been this quote by Christopher Hitchens. Whenever I hear some big mouth in Washington or the Christian heartland banging on about the evil of sodomy or whatever, I mentally enter his name in my notebook and contentedly set my watch. Sooner rather than later, he will be discovered down on his weary and well-worn old knees in some dreary motel or latrine. Incredible doesn't begin to describe the hypocrisy of it all. And so in North Carolina, it's all imploded. There will be a Democratic governor, and Donald Trump will lose the state. People in North Carolina will understand that this insanity that has come to their home, to their state, is the same exact insanity that has come to Springfield, Ohio. The Mark Robinson story in North Carolina and the Springfield, Ohio story are the same story. It's a depravity story. It's a deviance story. It's an unfitness story. It's an abject craziness story. Mark Robinson is a sick person, but is he less sick or more sick than Trump? How can it be that the behavior is troubling when Mark Robinson does it, but it's okay when Donald Trump did it? It's one of the wonders of the world, one of the great mysteries of the MAGA movement. But the good news is that 46 days from now, the American people can make sure that none of these people ever come close to having power ever. And while we're at it, Mark Robinson isn't the only deeply unfit person out there. Ted Cruz is on the edge of losing his seat in Texas. Josh Hawley is on the edge of losing his seat in Missouri. This is all connected. It is all part of the same network. It's all part of the same cause. It's a fascist cause. And like all fascist causes, it's filled with weirdos, with deviants, with criminals, with the aggrieved, with the opportunistic, with the cynical, with the miserable, and the violent. It's a dangerous movement. And the vice president is offering better. That's a good thing, because better is the only way out of this. And in North Carolina, 4 years from now, there'll be another Republican candidate running. Before he does, my advice would be scan all the porn sites, even this one. This is the morning. And sadly, the North Carolina Republicans didn't heed it. I'm Steve Schmidt. This is The Warning, and I invite you to subscribe on our Substack, on our YouTube channel. Follow us. Welcome to the community.